Hi everyone, Materim here again with another narrative battle report. And this one's actually going to be special for a couple of reasons. First of all, this will introduce the Beastmen to our narrative. Our normal dwarf player has picked them up and is just raring to go to get them into the story. Also, this will be a scenario from the General's Compendium book, which came out, I think, in 6th edition. And so we took one of the scenarios here and updated it for 8th. So hope you guys will enjoy that, as it'll definitely be something a little different. For nearly 2 weeks, Anya and her raiders had tracked the Imperial men who had fled before her father's might, and now they found themselves deep within the Drakvald, far from Snowmane territory. They had bypassed numerous towns on their expedition, towns which would have been ripe for the taking, but Durian had been the cooler head, keeping Anya on the path the Skull-Taker had commanded her on. Thus far they had been careful, striking smaller caravans only to maintain their supplies. But now they were deep in the dark forest, and if they did not emerge soon, Anya knew she would have no choice but to raid a larger village to supply her men. Durian approached as Anya knelt at the ground, expecting the many tracks on the brush-strewn forest floor. "Mistress, this is not the path to Longing Brook. Have you been able to find anything?" Anya scowled. "This may not be the road to your town, but they definitely came this way, though not nearly as many. Fewer and fewer tracks each day, and they wander. They are being hunted by more than just us. I would say that our quarry will not make it to Longing Brook, if there are any that remain now." Durian wheezed. "What are you saying?" Anya snapped her gaze up and around at the thick tree cover surrounding them. "We're not alone." Suddenly the air was filled with the sounds of crude horn blasts and braying. Anya jumped to her feet and grasped her axes, shouting to her men, "To arms, warrior of the Snowmane! Beastmen!" Alright, so here's the battlefield, and this scenario is a little unusual, so I wanted to go ahead and explain it. Whereas normally Warhammer considers everything to be open terrain, this battle considers everything to be forest, with the exception of the two brown areas in the top, one's in the top middle, one's on the top right, that are clearings, and the road that runs through the middle, which is also a clearing. The thing to keep in mind is that if you're in the forest, something in the clearing can only be charged if you're within 2 inches of the end of the forest, and vice versa. The scenario objectives are the ambushing force, which is the Beastmen, must try to kill the ambushees or keep them on the board. The game ends just like Watchtower, so after the 4th turn you start rolling off. The job of the ambushed team is to get off the board, off the far end. So they get points for any unit they get off the board edge, but the Beastmen team will get any points for any units that they kill or that remain on the board when the game is done. So that's just kind of a rundown, and we'll go ahead and get on to deployment. So we'll start with the Beastmen deployment. And I will go ahead and apologize on behalf of the Beastman player for the not painted models, but he's just gotten into the army and is very anxious to field them, so very little here is painted. In the back there, we start with a Bestigor herd. It has 14 people in it with full command, and with them is the Great Bray Shaman, Morgul the Despoiler. He is a level 4 Lore of the Wild. He has the Hag Tree Fetish, the Talisman of Preservation, and Steel Claws. The large unit next to that is a Gore herd with 30 members, additional hand weapons, and full command. There is a level 2 Bray Shaman, Lore of Beasts there. There is a small unit up front that's scattered that is a unit of Ungor Raiders. And a unit to the left there is a 10-man unit of Gore herd with shields and full command. Next we have his Gorgon, which he has named Zola, and then 5 more Ungor raiders in the far clearing on the right flank. And then the Warriors of Chaos have a unit of 20 Chaos Warriors to Khorne, full command. With them is Anya Snowmane, a Chaos Lord of Khorne, with the Obsidian Lodestone, Potion of Foolhardiness, and Scaled Skin. Next to that is a unit of 20 Chosen of Nurgle. They have full command and the Gleaming Pennant. And with them is Dorian, the Exalted Hero of Nurgle. He has the Helm of Many Eyes and Poisonous Slime. Then on the road we have a Gorebeast Chariot. And next to them is a unit of 5 Chaos Warhounds with no upgrades. So, Warriors of Chaos get the first turn, and the dogs run up to where you see them, I guess just to start blocking up some stuff from getting into the road. The Warriors players thought with the Gorebeast Chariot is to just run it down the road, because if you're on the road you have a +1 to movement, so he's hoping to just sort of zoom by and go ahead and hurry that off the far board edge and get the points there. Over here, both the Chosen and the Warriors unit advance slightly. The Warriors unit turns a little bit so that he doesn't run the risk of being in the flank, or rather having the Gorgon be in the flank as he comes up, and wants to still keep the building in flank because it looks like the Beastmen are going to start moving into the building as well. So then we go into Beastman turn 2, because turn 1 for the Warriors is very, very quick. He has no magic and no shooting. So everything over here moves up, and the 5-man Ungor Raider unit go ahead and hop into the tower. Over here on this side, the Gorgon moves to the other side of the road so that when the Gorebeast Chariot comes close, he can charge it. Also, we'll let him charge the dogs if he really wants to. And he has the Ungor Raiders leave the clearing because while he was inside of it, he had no line of sight on anything. So now that he's under the canopy, he can see the dogs at this point. And here's just a better shot of the Ungor Raiders moving into the tower. So during Magic Phase, the Great Bray Shaman uses Vile Tide against the Chaos Warriors, and with 5d6 Strength 1 hits, manages to kill a single one that you see removed there in the back. Of greater import, however, is that he then follows up with a Savage Dominion that summons a giant on the back board edge. So now the Warriors are going to have to worry about a giant coming up their backside. And because they're servants of Khorne and are frenzied, they're not even going to be able to flee from it and gain extra movement towards their board edge. So definitely a good play on the Beastmen. So we go into Warriors of Chaos turn 2. The Chosen of Nurgle charge the building, which seems like a good idea at the time. They're pretty sure to just ace those Beastmen that are in there. There's only 5. But the thing is then the Beastman player can essentially box him in from the building and not let him be able to come out. So it's kind of wasting time. And the Warriors of Chaos, either they move forward or they fail to charge. I don't quite recall which. I think they may have just moved forward because they're trying to get away from that giant and make as much forward momentum across the board as they possibly can, since that's really what they're doing. Over here, the dogs do a redirect shield to prevent the Gorgon from charging into the Gorebeast Chariot, and the Gorebeast Chariot is just going to move up. Now that there's no way that the Gorgon can get to him, he seems pretty willing just to run down the road as fast as his freakishly sharp wheels will be able to take him. So, no magic, no shooting, go into close combat. Obviously, the Chosen just annihilate the unit of Ungor Raiders that are in the building and lay claim. So we go into Beastmen 2, and Beastmen started off by succeeding a charge with the Giant into the rear of the Chaos Warriors. The Gorgon then succeeds a charge into the Chaos Warhounds, who miraculously succeed their terror check and don't go anywhere. So the Gorgon's going to chew them up and spit them out, but at least they did succeed in shielding the Gorebeast chariot for a turn, and it's hoping to kind of sneak by once all that's done. And then over here, the 10-man Gore Raider unit, or Gore unit moves up to the edge of the forest. This might be where his level 2 caster is right now. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not super familiar with the Beastmen. So I was having a little trouble keeping up as I was watching the game. And over on this flank, the Beastigore continue to move forward. The Beastigore and the larger of the two Gore herds are kind of moving up as a solid line to prevent any of the units from running past them. At this point, he'll have to deal with one or the other to get through and make it off that far table edge. So magic was pretty immaterial, so we go straight into combat. As predicted, the Gorgon just destroys that unit of dogs and has to overrun because he has frenzy, but apparently he's like the Minotaurs that he only overruns a d6, so he rolled a 1 and overran a single inch. So didn't really help the Gorebeast chariot at this point, but he should still be able to sneak by without too much trouble there. Over here, the warriors did a wound to the giant, and then the giant, he ended up getting a spell off. I think it was Wissen's Wild Form off on the giant. So giant takes 1 wound and then yells and balls, so the giant wins by 1, and the warriors stick and they reform. But the nice thing is they've lost their frenzy now. So we go into warriors turn 3. And first thing happens is the Gorebeast chariot charges into the flank of the Gorgon. Now, watching this, not really knowing either of the two units, I thought this was kind of foolish. I thought the Gorgon was going to make pasty meat out of the Gorebeast chariot, but shows how little I know. They're a lot butcher than I thought. The Chosen end up coming out of the building on this side because the Beastmen did have them blocked in, so they did have to come out in kind of the back corner. The plus side is that they're in such a position where they can do some nasty support to anything that's coming on this end. And I think the 10 Gore that are moving around there are just totally outclassed by them, so it ends up letting him get a big unit into that flank there. So we go into combat, and the Gorebeast chariot just turns the Gorgon into absolute raw meat. I was really surprised at that. This is the first time our Warriors of Chaos player has fielded a Gorebeast chariot, and they're hella brutal. Of course, it doesn't help that the Gorgon, like the giant, has no real defense other than a high toughness, which is no big deal. However, on this side, the giant ends up taking 3 more wounds, but the giant just swings with club and crushes a whole back rank off of the Warriors of Chaos. So, I think the giant wins and the Warriors stick. Again, that may not be right. It may be that the giant loses by 1, but it was close. Either way, they stuck, and it's going to go on. So we go to Beastmen turn 3, and the Beast Horde, or the Gore Horde, I guess is what it's called, did a swift reform and moves towards this area, I guess to try and block the chariot and the 20-man Chosen from using the road, because now he's in a situation where he'll be able to charge anything that moves up the road in that direction. And over here, he attempts a charge on the back of the warrior unit and fails it, so he just moves up a little bit. which is good because ideally he didn't really want to charge in there until the giant's dead anyway, and his Great Bray Shaman will be able to fight or cast spells again. So that's really the only downside about that Savage Dominion is it lets you have a Gorgon, a Giant, or a Jabberslythe, but you pretty much can't do anything with the character after that. So we go into combat. Giant is killed and then falls on the unit and kills two more Warriors of Chaos with his fall. So that's pretty cool. I definitely like the Giant. And for those of you who have watched my battle reports before, you will recognize that that is actually my Giant that they're using because Beastmen don't have one. So Chew shows up for a cameo appearance. And then the Warriors of Chaos here whip around as their combat reform to stare down the Bestigor herd that's coming here. The Giant definitely did its job, though. It took out a lot of individuals out of that unit, and more importantly for this scenario, it held them up for a long time. We're at bottom of 3 now, so there's only one more turn before we start rolling for end of turn, and they're pretty slowed. So we go into top of 4. The Beastigor Chariot charges into the 4-man, or not Beastigor, the Gorbeast Chariot charges into the 10-man Gore unit. Succeeds his dangerous terrain test. And after what the Gorbeast Chariot did to the Gorgon, I'm not really expecting the Gores to do very well there. And over here, the Nurgling Chosen turn around to face the multiple big units that are coming in on their side. So we go to combat. The Gorbeast Chariot just completely blows through that Unigore and managed to carry over so that now he's just going to be able to kind of zoom behind that Gore herd and run for the edge of the board because it's getting late in the game and the Warriors need to get something off that far edge to be able to claim the points for it and not have the Beastmen take charge. And we go into this is the top, sorry. Warriors of Chaos charge into the Bestigors, which they've got to, or, no, I'm sorry, it's the other way around. This is the Bestigors charging into the Warriors of Chaos, because it's Beastmen turn at this point. The large Gore herd turns around so it will be able to see the chariot. At even max chariot movement, he's not going to end up getting out of their line of sight. Main downside here is he has presented a flank to the Chosen. So if they're fast enough to take advantage of it, that could get a little bit nasty. And then over here you see he moves the 5 Ungor Raiders there into the forest so he can start shooting at the Chosen, because the Chosen are still within 2 inches of the edge of the board, or edge of the forested area there, so the Ungors on the road will be able to see them. So during Magic, the level 2 Shaman, who was actually in this larger unit now that I've seen it, tries to cast Wissen's Wild Form, miscasts it, gets it off on the unit that's fighting the Warriors of Chaos, but blows himself or does the 4 on the miscast. Huge template right on the unit, kills enough to make a panic check, and they turn and run. So they're very close to the edge of the board at this point. On the plus side, though, the Wissen's Wild Form Beastigors end up putting a crazy amount of pain into the face of the Warriors. His Great Bray Shaman is in a challenge with Anya Snowmane, and they kind of pillow fought each other, but the rest of the Bestigors ended up doing another 5 wounds. But the Warriors ended up rolling very well for leadership and stuck around. So we go into Warriors turn, and I think this is turn 4. So might be 5. The game hasn't ended yet, regardless. The Gorbeast Chariot ends up making a run for the the board edge, but since it can't march, it's moving pretty slowly to get there. And over here, the Chosen of Nurgle end up moving as much as they can. They're trying to get close to the board edge as well, but they do want to avoid going on the road because they'll get chaffed up by the Ungor Raiders and it'll just slow them down. And during combat here, a couple of Beastigors die, but they manage to take out almost another rank of the Chaos Warriors. Without Frenzy, they're just... there's not enough bodies there to do the kind of damage he needs to stay with these great weapon Beastigors. So it's putting a hurt. And the Great Bray Shaman and Anya are still in a challenge, and they're kind of whiffing at each other. So we go into Beastmen turn, and the Beastmen fail to rally, and they stop literally a hair's breadth from the edge of the board. So they are going to have one more chance to rally and at least act as a roadblock here. So we go into combat here. The Great Bray Shaman takes one wound from Anya and then manages to tear her apart. He ended up rolling 6 on the Steel Claws, so he not only got 3 extra attacks, but no armor saves allowed on them, and just ripped her up. Once she was gone, the rest of the unit fell to the Beastigor onslaught. I think maybe one more Beastigor died, maybe not. So we go into, I think this is top of 5 or top of 6. The Gorbeast Chariot and the Nurgle Chosen move up, as you can see here. They're hoping to declare charges, I guess, next turn if the Beastmen rally. Hit them both at the same time, then kill them and overrun off the board. So then we go into bottom of 6, or bottom of 5, I'm sorry. Yeah, it is 5. Bottom of 5. And the Beastmen do rally, and they turn around basically to face the oncoming Chariot and Nurgle Chosen with all of the wrath and anger that the Beastmen possess. And during magic here, the Great Bray Shaman gets off Savage Dominion yet again and summons a Gorgon this time. Unfortunately, I think he placed it bad. He could place it on any board edge, and I just think ultimately he put it here where it's really not going to matter after the next turn when the Warriors charge that big brick. I probably would have put it maybe closer, maybe behind the big unit, so that if it was an overrun, they were going to hit the Gorgon next turn, like right after it, so that they wouldn't have been able to run off the board. But it wasn't a bad choice. So top of turn 6, and I am right in that this is 6 now. Both the Chariot and the Nurgle Chosen succeed their charge into the Gore Herd. And then during combat, the Gore Herd is absolutely dismantled by the 2 units. The Chariot ends up overrunning and runs off the board. The Nurgle Chosen do as well, choose to overrun, but they roll very badly and don't make it to the edge of the board. So now it's Beastmen turn, and the game will only not end on a roll of a 1 this turn. So you go into Beastmen turn, and he moves the Gorgon here. At this point, I don't even know why. It's not really going to accomplish anything. And that, as you see, is the final look at the board, because the game does in fact end at the end of Beastmen's turn. So the only thing to escape the battle was the Gorbeast Chariot. The dogs, the Chaos Warriors of Khorne, were both killed, and the Nurgle Chosen did not escape. So they were set upon by the ambushers. Run, run, run! No enjoyment from laying down dead. You must run, and I must hunt, shouted the shaman, known to those that spoke as Morgor the Despoiler, as he followed the warriors. His previous prey was lost to the denizens of the Drakvald, but these new ones held a far greater prize, a woman who worshipped the creators. He could have had her the second his claws ripped through Anya's armor, but no. Run, my lady, the shaman laughed and brayed. You must run, run, run! Make this hunt my greatest ever, and if you're lucky, at its end you will provide many more children of chaos. As the remaining warriors fled from view, Morgor made his way back to the camp where the living and dead from both sides had been moved. Feast! But first let us pray for this wonderful meal, laughing as the words left his mouth. The screams and cries could have been heard from miles. Nearby towns had heard them before, but this time there was something far darker, almost cannibalistic and obscenely cruel. The hunt had begun, and now they would know what true chaos meant. So, as you obviously gathered from the ending narrative, victory went to the Beastmen. They ended up winning this one pretty handily, but the kind of interesting part was that it really was a back and forth game the whole time. It came down to a few crucial rolls, one or two crucial combats that ended up allowing the Beastmen to get a hold of the warriors and take them down. So it was a very, very fun game to watch. I like it when we do something different, and this scenario definitely was different. It's definitely not something that I would want to use with every army. For instance, dwarves would be totally screwed by this, and wood elves would be God. But it was fun seeing how it worked. We might try some other unusual scenarios in the future, but it was also a great way for the Beastmen to come in to the scenario or to the narrative. And very strong showing that they show up and get their first game a win against Warriors of Chaos. That's been causing some problems, frankly. But it was a fun game to watch. I know both players definitely enjoyed it. So I hope you guys did as well. Please like and subscribe to the video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, we are going to keep going. We may end up taking a little break from the narrative. We've got one more narrative game that we're definitely going to do next week. But we may ease off a little bit. Everybody's getting a little burned out having to be so focused on nothing but victory to try and push forward their interests in the narrative. So you may see a few more kind of unusual, kooky games. But we definitely won't be giving up on it. It's something we're all interested in, and we'll definitely see where it goes from here now that the Beastmen under Morgor the Despoiler is about to enter the story. So, again, thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you next time.